everyone. I am so excited about tonight's Facebook Live because I'm talking to Helen Duhkan, and she has focused solely on family, divorce, and matrimonial law for 15 years. Wow, you look so young. You look like you started when you were 5.
Thank you.
So, thank you for being on. And so, just to tell you a little bit more before we jump into our topic tonight, Helen is licensed in both New York and New Jersey with offices in Manhattan and in Hackensack, New Jersey. Helen has taught family law to students at Hofstra School of Law. She's lectured about family law issues at Montclair State University, and she also is scheduled to teach newly admitted attorneys about family law at Fordham Law School. Helen has been recognized as a super lawyer, top 40 under 40 family law attorney in New York, and one of the top 10 female law attorneys in New Jersey for client satisfaction. And she is rated 10 out of 10 at avvo.com. So Helen fiercely strives to protect her clients' best interests and prides herself on being able to obtain successful settlements on behalf of her clients. So welcome, Helen, to the show. I am super excited to speak to you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me to be on tonight.
It is really my pleasure. And so I'm so incredibly impressed with your resume. 40 under 40, top attorney, all that good stuff. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is what made you focus on family law? Because it's such a highly emotional area of life. What drew you to it?
Well, honestly, I wanted to do entertainment law, and I sort of dabbled in that, and I realized that maybe like looking at contracts in an office wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I started working for a divorce attorney in law school, and I saw like how much passion she has for it, and that she really just made a difference. She made a difference in women's lives and men's lives. It's such an emotional field that they really need support in every realm of their life. Emotional support, financial support. They really, they're in crisis. And I found that I'm good at that. I'm good at balancing, their emotions and sort of controlling it and making it logical, so that they got, a good settlement. They were, they were really set for their future. And I like the idea of that. So that's why I stuck with family law. It's all I've ever done. So
it's like being a superhero. Honest to God, because, look, I came from divorce. My parents got divorced. I got divorced. It's such a difficult time, and people are so emotional that it's almost like when you get sick and then you're expected to find a doctor and to take care of everything when you're at your worst. Same here. So having someone like you to look out for people, to be able to get, to look out for their best interests of them and their children and everything else, it's like being a superhero. I really believe it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's jump into our topic today. And we were chatting before we started here, and as we put it out there, January is also known as Divorce Month, and it's not because they file a lot of divorces in January. It's because it begins the process, right? So you want to tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just, I did some research because I do know January is an incredibly busy month for me. I've had so many consultations this month for people wanting to file in January already. And, but, I haven't asked my clients. I never ask, why they want to file. I just, I support whatever decision they want to make. So I did some research, and I guess, I read somewhere, funny enough, that it's a lot of people's New Year's resolution. They're starting their new life, and they just, they decide that they're in an unhealthy marriage, or they're not happy, and they decide that the new year is the best time to kick off, a new chapter in their life. So.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I had heard as well. And also, they're dealing with getting together with family around the holidays, and you just want to get through that and not have to have the discussion. God forbid you file before then, and then you have to show up to meet all your family, and everyone's asking what happened. Sorry?
Especially if you have children, you don't want to ruin their holidays or cause, instability. You just wait.
Exactly. No, agreed. And so, you know, with that said, obviously people want to do this, start anew and everything else, but there's timing, right? There's preparation. So tell us a little bit about that, because that's, you know, one of the things that I really want for the listeners here is to get some useful information about how to plan and how to make smart choices for themselves, so that it's not just New Year's resolution, as they say. You know, that's not always the end all be all. Is this the right time? What do I have to do? How do I get my ducks in a row to plan ahead before I go ahead and do something that is literally life changing?
Right. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about divorce is that you can like just rush into it. I think a lot of attorneys, I mean, not to say anything bad about my community, but a lot of attorneys will fuel that rush, to get the client. But I think that your best way to lower stress and to, lessen the amount of money you spend is to really prepare yourself for a divorce. We prepare for everything in life. We prepare for, exams, for careers. We're always preparing, and people just rush into court and say, okay, divorce me. They don't think about all the assets, the children, the everything that needs to be discussed. They just want it done. So I think that it is just imperative for people to really prepare themselves, for divorce.
I totally agree. And I mean, the reality is if you're trying to get a divorce, it's because you're in a situation that is no longer tolerable to you. But don't make the situation worse by not planning ahead. And so, what are the things that people can do to plan ahead before they go ahead and file?
So I kind of have like a four-step system, because a lot of people will come into me and I'll tell them, what they need to do to prepare, to get a leg up when they do start. And they say, oh my gosh, I have to do all of this, so I can't get divorced tomorrow. And I say, well, no, I have a system worked out for you to prepare. So I think the first and foremost and the most important thing people can do is getting organized. They need to get access to their financial documents. They need to start a journal, write down all of your thoughts, your day-to-day concerns. And a lot of people will tell me, well, I don't have access to my finances. You'd be surprised how many people will say, my spouse does all of that. And I say, don't worry, it's very easy. You go on the IRS website and you request a copy of your taxes. Guess what? Your spouse won't even know about it. It could be sent to a friend. It could be sent to anybody you want. You can open up a PO box, wherever you need it to go. And that encompasses everything, bank accounts it'll have on it, accounts that are earning interest. I think that you just really very much need to get organized, because knowledge is power. First and foremost, know your expenses. Start a budget list. How much are you spending weekly? How much do you need per month? How much do you spend per year? If you want to move out, you're going to have to know what your expenses are. If your spouse is going to move out, you're going to need to know, what you're spending money on, where you can save. Second of all, you need access to funds. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go to an attorney and my spouse is going to magically pay for all of my legal fees up front. And that's just not how it works. Most of the time you need to hire that attorney first before they'll even file for you in court. And you need to gather, access to funds. So, a lot of the clients will come in and say, I don't have any access. I don't have my own account. I don't have my own credit cards. And I'll say, well, you need to start. You need to start you open a bank account. You get a credit card. If you need to borrow money from family or friends. A lot of women will get side jobs. I had a client who was a psychiatrist, but she didn't want the money that went into her account, for her husband to see her taking that out. So she did photography on the side. And actually, she's really busy now doing photography. So, but that's how she paid for her divorce. If you have a joint bank account, you can take money from that safely. I wouldn't wipe the whole thing out, but, you can take a little bit by little bit by little bit and put it into your new bank account, where it would go unnoticed until you had enough. People ask, how much do I need typically to start a divorce? And I would say, as a safety blanket, you need at least, I would say $10,000. That would cover, yeah, it seems like a lot, but it's not just attorneys. It's, you're going to need funds. You're going to need funds for possibly housing. You're going to need funds to support yourself for a little while until the court orders your spouse to pay for things. You're going to need funds for experts. If experts are needed to decide custody in your case, you're going to need to sometimes shell out those funds. Courts don't like to make one spouse pay for everything in order to kind of even the game, So, so get organized, get access to funds, get a security blanket, and then third, form a support team. You need to find a good attorney. You need to find, if you need a therapist, friends, family, maybe you need a financial person to sit down with and to plan with, for your finances, for your future. You need to think big picture rather than just today, really, in preparing. Yeah. And then you need to develop, finally, a proper mindset. I have so many women that come in and, as women, we doubt ourselves in everything we do. We just don't go for things. And I think that a lot of women come in here and they're still wives. And I'm not saying you shouldn't care about your spouse. I like to get my divorces done as amicably as possible. Yeah. I'm not in it to break up families. I think good attorneys, divorce attorneys, are not in it to break up your family. We want to maintain your family structure, moving forward. Your kids need that, and you need that, as human beings. So, but you need to develop a proper mindset that, your attorney tells you what you're entitled to, and you don't make excuses for that. You make sure that you're taken care of. It's your future. Really, we're future planning. It's not, today, and sometimes that's hard to see, but I think with the proper support team that, that can be easily done. Finally, with regard to preparing, and if there's a right time possibly to file for divorce, people say usually if you can, like let's say you're at 8 years, you're at 9 years, and it's not a domestic violence situation, it's not an emergency, people usually say to wait till like the 10-year mark. Wow. Because it's just a funny time, because at 10 years, you get more equitable distribution. Most likely the accounts will be split 50-50, even if you're not in a 50-50 state. You get Social Security benefits, you insure those. If your spouse is in the military, you would get retirement benefits automatically after 10 years, even if you're divorced. So there's a lot of incentive to wait until the 10-year mark. So I tell my clients that are at 8 years or 9 years, let's start planning, get all of our ducks in a row. And when you hit your 10-year mark, you can file for divorce.
That is
maybe in January.
That's so interesting. I had no idea about that. And I love that even as an attorney, you're talking to people about mindset. Because mindset is such an important thing for everyone. It's not just a transaction. It's not just the planning. It's really getting your mind right about what's going on. And, and I understand that this is highly emotional. I've gone through it myself, so I know. But right. To minimize the emotions and think about the kids, think about your future, think about the assets, think about what's equitable also for everyone involved.
Right.
And it's really like, this is gold. This is really good advice. And I love the way you think also, even as we met a while back, you had started a nonprofit. And I'd love for you to tell people a little bit about that as well, because I love that you're not just in this, for the money and all this stuff. You really are a thoughtful, kind person who really looks out for women in particular. And that that's what made me connect with you, and your nonprofit. Can you tell a little bit about that? We'll jump back into the topic, but I just found that so interesting.
So, we're women. We have to stick together, right? So I'm always looking for ways to sort of support women, and it's amazing when I can jive that with what I do on a daily basis. I can connect it. So I started a nonprofit called Sunset to Sunrise, as you know, and it takes divorced women who are recently divorced, and women can nominate these women. Other women can nominate these women, or they can nominate themselves. And we give them a makeover, makeup and hair, and we give them a photo shoot, a really special day all for themselves, photos with their kids or without, it's up to them. And then we give them a portrait, and a portrait to hang in their house to symbolize their new beginning, that they are beautiful and they're strong and life will go on. And we also give them images, dating sites, business websites, images that make them feel beautiful and separate their new life from their old. Because a lot of women will tell me they throw away all of their photos. And when I ask them why, they say because they're reminders. Even if their husband is not, or in the photo, it's a reminder, it was a family reunion, or it was a family photo shoot, or anything. It's just a reminder, and it causes them, I don't want to say pain. I mean, it might be pain, but it also is just, it's the old them. So we want to give them something that, signifies their new life.
Wow, that's so amazing. It's so important to, for women to support one another. And, I really wanted to cover this topic here as well, because from what I've read anyway, and I've been in the divorce space for quite some time now, that most of the divorces are filed by women. So, it's important to know what your options are before you go ahead and do something like this, because it is a process and it can take a lot. So, we talked a little bit about the planning, and what can you tell us about, like what a divorce is like? Does it, and I know that you work really hard to make it easy for the folks that you work with, but
Right.
tell us a little bit more about what are the things we can do not to make it so difficult for ourselves.
I think that the main thing to do is sort of be able to put your emotional energy elsewhere. If you have to, join a gym, if you have to meditate, if you have to, I don't know, if you have to like scream into a pillow, every morning for the whole process, to just generate your emotional energy elsewhere, because it's my job to sort of put the logic into it, to speak to you on almost like business terms. And, it's my job to give my client a reality check. And sometimes I'll say, listen, you're thinking about this emotionally, which is actually going to hinder you financially or emotionally in the future. We need to think right now. We need to put our hats on, not our emotional self, but our logical self, and think about these things, in the big picture. Because I think that as women, we are emotional beings, and it's very hard sometimes. I mean, I tell my clients at the same time, I represent 50% men and 50% women, and a lot of times I'll have to tell the women to decide not only with your gut, let your gut lead you, but then let me logically guide you to like the proper decisions. So I think that's the most important, advice I could give.
And that is so important too, to really have someone who's looking out for your best interest and who's being very logical and systematic about the situation, because it is a very emotional time. But I love what you say about, women meditating. Like, it's probably the number one thing that you can do as a woman to get through a lot of the anxiety and the stresses that you're going to encounter through a process like this, especially when you have children. And you still have to be a parent, and you still have to continue to deal with the day to day, and then maybe even add to that, if you have been home for years and all of a sudden now you have to start working, the stress level really does increase. So it's so important for you to do something to get yourself, and working out is a great thing, not to mention the added benefit of, potentially losing weight or getting fit or whatever, as you go into this new world of being single. It's so interesting that, attorneys or someone like you, Helen, will give that kind of advice, because it's really important. It's really part of the process.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to, because like divorce law isn't like so much like black and white. It's a lot of gray, and it's dealing with family.
Yeah.
So really, I can't always be like your attorney. I have to sometimes put like my friend hat on, or my counselor, therapist. I have to really just support my client by like, providing all those services. So, I think the best for me is that, my motto, nothing says a good day like a divorce. And, I don't say that flippantly. I really want my client at the end of the day to come into my office and say, yay, it's great. This is great. This is a good thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be hard or treacherous. A lot of people say, oh, what you do is so hard. And I say, what I do is like what I make of it. So, I bond with my clients, I support them fully. And I hope that, when they have their second wedding, or they have, whatever else. They'll invite me to celebrate with them. So
Absolutely. And I think if you go to the length of saying, you know what, it's time that I end this marriage, then you do need a divorce, and you need a good divorce attorney to guide you through that. And you, at that point, can't lament. I mean, if you're in a situation where you're being emotionally abused or mentally abused, which, you know, a lot of us go through that, myself included, and you think, oh, well, nobody's hitting me, so I'm not being abused.
right.
Guess what? It's not just physical, there's emotional, there's mental. And so if you're in a situation where you have to get out, then you need to do something about it, and you need to do it in a way that is going to be the least detrimental to your children and to your future. Because, you know, depending on when you're doing something like this, you could be in your 50s and or 60s even filing for divorce, and now you're kind of starting over to some extent, and it could be very challenging. So the more support you have, the better, and the better that you plan, that is key. So any other tips that you want to add as far as planning? I know we talked about quite a few already. Anything else that you want to add to this topic? Because then I want you to let everyone know how they can get a hold of you and things like that, and let us know what you're doing these days.
I don't know. I don't know what else I could tell people about planning and of itself, except for, start a journal, get yourself extremely organized. I tell my clients, even like they say, well, if mail comes in, do I open it? And I say, well, no, because they don't want that to tip them off, there's something going on, or ask too many questions. I say, take a picture of the envelope and where it's from, and you send it to me, and I will, house them in my system, so that when we are ready to do, financial discovery, I can say, well, he got a letter from this bank or that bank or here, and we can get those records for you. So a lot of people think that they don't have access or don't have information, but really they have so much more information at their fingertips than they really think that they do. And it's very important just to gather as many little hints as possible, so when the time comes, you're really on top of things.
Wow, that is so interesting. I mean, the things that you're saying right now, I wouldn't even think about. It's like, take a picture of, the mail and stuff. That's so interesting, because I hear so many people talk about going through a divorce where the spouse has hidden money, owned this or that, and now they're supposedly bankrupt, or they don't have money, or all this craziness. And it baffles me how this stuff happens. And I think, well, what can somebody do? Well, this is great advice. Like, keep track of what's coming in. When the mail arrives, take a look at it, take pictures of it. There's just so many little things to think about. Wow. I would have never thought about this. So, how can anyone, if anyone has questions and they want to get a hold of you, let's give some ways for people to contact you, because I think you have so much to offer, and you're based out of New York and New Jersey. So for those of you who are in New York, you could always reach out and work with you.
Yeah, I think the easiest way is if you go to my website. It's HD, like my name, Helen Duhkan, hdfamilylaw.com. And all of my information is there. My phone number, 866-937-9990. I think that, my email address is on the website, duhkan@hdfamilylaw.com. And people can always write me with questions. I'm always, I always want to help. I'm never going to say, you're not a client, or I per se, this is not legal advice. I have to say that, this is just generalized advice. And if you write me, I would have to see if what you're asking me is legal advice, and if it amounts to that. But just generalized questions, information, more tips on planning. If you have an idea, can I do this or should I do this? I'd be more than happy to answer any of those questions.
And the great thing is that your website also has a blog, so you do give out a lot of tips and information for folks to, to really take a look at. Like, there's just things that you don't think about. I mean, who thinks about this stuff? You're an expert. You're the pro. You're dealing with stuff left and right, and every time you think you know everything, something else new comes up, right? And so now you have this whole massive repository of all these little things that can come up during a divorce. But most people go into this and they're lost. They're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. So like having an advocate like you, like I said, you're like a superhero. I really believe that. It's like, we all need someone to look out for us, someone to advocate for us, and that's so important. And then someone that you can trust and feel comfortable with. And I can't even imagine someone meeting you and not feeling comfortable with you, because I think that's part of, it's really important, I think.
Yeah, I mean, knowledge is power. Like you have to just know, and I think that is as much information as you can gain from any source, whether it's like the blog on my website or any source that you find that that resonates with you, I think is great, because it's like the Wild West, honestly, the divorce process. A lot of times I'll tell my clients there's nothing to do with common sense. It's very formulaic, and it's great to just come in with an awareness of what to expect.
Yeah. That's interesting, and I'm sure that you deal with women who are divorcing, narcissist men and things like that, and I'm sure that has a whole other level of challenge that you have to incorporate as well, and how you communicate, because once you file and you're dealing with someone like that, it just becomes even more challenging. I know I've covered topics just on that alone, like on just dealing with narcissistic people. But when you're going through a divorce, it's particularly challenged because they're smart and they have no empathy, and they're just going to come at you. So you almost want your attorney to be the only one dealing with the spouse, right?
Yes. I mean, those clients especially, because there's a lot of fight that has to go on. So I have to, I tell them, listen, you're the boss, but I have to do what I have to do to protect your rights. And most of those clients will, I send to a therapist. They'll need somebody to really to just vent to, because the person that they're married to, if they're a narcissist, is going to try to put them through the same thing during the divorce that they put them through during their marriage, the reason why they're leaving. And it just causes such stress. And, you just pray that there's a good attorney on the other end who tempers them, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's, they find an attorney that's just like them, because that's what, like that's what they want. That's what they're looking for. And it's just a hard process for the client, especially, it's my job, but for them, they're getting, the abuse the whole time. So
that is super challenging. Well, I really, really appreciate this information. I think it's absolutely gold for people to know, to arm themselves with this knowledge. And, you are amazing. You know your stuff. Like, I mean, and I can't believe the amount of stuff that you've done in such a young age, teaching others and family law, etc., and all these accolades. So I'm really, really honored to have you on the show. And we'll just tell everyone one more time how they can get a hold of you. And then, of course, we're going to post your information as well, so that people can contact you directly.
Yeah, just go to the website, hdfamilylaw.com. Arlene, thank you for everything that you do for women, always supporting, and everything that, all the information that you share and the support systems that you provide, even with the Her Heart Women's community. I think it's great what you do, and I think that, it's so valuable. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being on the show. And we'll have to do this again soon, covering a few more topics. God knows we can go in every different direction when it comes to the divorce space.
That's right. We could do every day.
Exactly. All right. Well, good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Good night. Thank you.